Hey, entrepreneurs, how do you know if you're succeeding at your approach to entrepreneurship? How do you know if you're doing business right? Well, here's one of the differentiators between my most successful entrepreneurs and those who struggle to get traction. It's that the people who really succeed, and I'm talking about the highest level guys I've worked with, there's something different about them. And here's the key. They enjoy entrepreneurship even when they're failing. So if you find yourself feeling depressed or frustrated, just beaten down in a funk, ask yourself if maybe you're doing entrepreneurship wrong. So here's why I say this. There's a key difference between doing a business model because it will get you something you want on the other side. Like, I will do this so I can get money, so I can have security or freedom for people I care about or whatever. That's doing business so that you can get something you want. It requires effort, willpower, trying hard, and you feel beat up and defeated when it doesn't go your way. Versus you pursue entrepreneurship because you're fascinated and curious about the process that makes it work. My most successful entrepreneurs tell me that they do this because they wake up every morning thinking about how they could do it better, wondering how they could improve a process, becoming more curious about the inner workings of the system that is giving them the output they're getting. You know, they say that every system is perfectly designed to render the results or the outcomes that it produces. So if you find yourself frustrated with the output, then you should get more curious about the system that's producing that output. It's just going to lead to endless frustration if you continuously bang your head against the wall and never ask yourself, well, why is that wall there? Why am I getting the pain in my head? It's because the system I'm using, which is banging my head against the wall, is designed to produce that result, right? And the pain is there to tell you to stop doing that and to perhaps back up, zoom out, and look at this and realize, oh, there's a wall there and I should walk around it instead of trying to go through it. That's a very simplistic way of me saying, if you're feeling beat up, maybe you're trying too hard. Maybe you need to get more curious about the system and play the game of entrepreneurship. Then the results end up coming. I think of it a little bit like Steve Jobs is a good example of somebody who pursued what he just intrinsically felt driven and curious about. How can we simplify and make a device more beautiful? And it led to results instead of focusing on the results first. This is very similar to what Dolly Parton says. I don't remember the quote exactly, but she says something like, first figure out who you are, then do it on purpose. And I'd say that's what Steve Jobs did. He figured out, like, this is the kind of person I am. This is how I would like devices to look. And then he did that on purpose. And when you align yourself with a purpose of that sort, entrepreneurship feels very different, because you're not doing it so that you can get a result. You're doing it because that's what you want to do. And so it requires a lot less effort and willpower. And you just naturally wake up with more energy and curiosity about, but how can we overcome that obstacle? Instead of feeling beat up by the obstacle, you're fascinated by the process of overcoming it so that you can achieve a greater purpose or vision of what you're trying to work on. So if you are in the camp of waking up feeling frustrated because the results, things aren't going your way, or you're comparing yourself too much to other people who've achieved a higher level of success, maybe you're a little too focused on the outcomes that come from business, and maybe you would do better, find higher energy and actually have more success with those outward indicators of business success if you would focus a little bit more on getting curious about how you can produce better results for the people that you serve, whether that's somebody that you're producing leads for, or whether that's a customer that you're producing a service for. Get more curious about the process that leads to success in the way that it feels most natural to you. How does success look in your mind? You focus on that and you become curious with that. Entrepreneurship starts to feel more like a game. You wake up fascinated with the game of entrepreneurship. So here's the formula. If entrepreneurship feels like willpower and trying really hard, you're doing it wrong. Get more curious about what makes business work. Start to look for the patterns. Get really curious to see the patterns that underlie what's working and what's not working. So here's your challenge this week. Anytime you notice just even the slightest feeling of defeat or being beat up by this business process you're working on, use that as a cue to remind you to get more curious about the system that rendered that mini defeat, because it's not a big defeat, right? That's part of the process. Is entrepreneurs are in the business of solving problems. You're constantly inventing new things. So as soon as you invent something, some aspects of that will work, and then some things will break, right? And that's the normal job of an entrepreneur. And as soon as you embrace that, you stop feeling beat up by it, and instead you become fascinated with it. That's your challenge. Use any feeling of getting pushed backwards or frustration as a cue to remind you to get more curious about the system that created that. Get more curious and more fascinated with that, and you'll find that the external indicators of success start to come more naturally. Talk to you again soon.